You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And my guest this morning, Colonel Festus Boakye, retired. Nana Kwabena Abrampa Mensa of the CDD, Kwesi Enin, and Martin Pebu. Now, joining us on the phone is the secretary to the Emil Short Commission of Inquiry, Mr. Kofi Abuchi. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Okay, so we'll sort out the lines and all right. Hello, Mr. Abuchi.
Yes, hello, Thompson.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Right. So this an onerous responsibility entrusted in the commission, right?
It is. It is in the light of the subject matter to be investigated, and in the light of our history as a country, and the fact that we have elections a year from now. It certainly is an onerous responsibility, and I think it's also one that places an obligation on all of us, because we are collective shareholders in our commonwealth. And if we do not support this country, that's what we have. So yes, I certainly see it as an onerous responsibility, and hopefully we'll be able to discharge the mandate.
Great. We'll support you in prayer and all that is required so that you succeed. But many may not appreciate the terms under which you are going to work properly. So can you assist us? Beyond the black letter that we see in the terms, what is it that you are capable of doing or not capable of doing?
I don't think there's more to it than what appears in the CI, and what generally has been put out there. I think you read it at the beginning of your program. So in simple terms, we have to investigate all matters connected with the election that was conducted in the Iowa Oregon and surrounding issues. Again, I have to be very careful about the things I say here, because at this stage, it's very easy for people to preempt things. Nothing has been preempted, but from the reportage in the media, I think we all know that the elections did not go as planned. We all know that there were incidents of security breaches. We all know, apparently, from the public, again, the reports, that there were some apparently, issues involving complaints of manhandling, complaints of persons who were not supposed to be there, who were there, and all kinds of other complaints, the details of which I would not go into at this stage to preempt anything, because that is supposed to be the subject of investigation. But clearly, from the media reportage, the election did not go as planned. And so the mandate of the commission, in very short and simple terms, is to investigate again, as noted by you, the mandate of the commission is not to investigate generally things surrounding the by-elections in Ghana. It is the Iowa West Oregon. So it is specific to a particular place. That is not to say, however, that the recommendations or the outcome of the findings of the commission cannot be applied generally and across the country. Because, truth be told, the problems and challenges surrounding the conduct of by-elections in Ghana appear cross-cutting. And so whatever the outcome of the commission's mandate is, the expectation is that the application will benefit the country generally, especially as we head into a major election in 2020.
So what kind of vehicle, as it were, use of experts or offices is the commission going to rely on? Because there may be need to investigate, there may be need to do some forensic analysis. How is the commission planning to execute the mandate in respect of all these other matters?
The commission was inaugurated only yesterday.
Right.
And the government has indicated its full support for the commission's work. The government has also indicated, at least at the inauguration, its detachment from the process, and therefore there isn't going to be interference, or there isn't going to be some kind of manipulation of any kind. The government has indicated that it's going to provide all the logistical and human resource capacity requirements for the commission to deliver on its mandate. And therefore, starting from Monday, the commission is going to start putting together the basics that are required for it to do its work. As you indicated, if there's a need for us to do field investigations, which possibly may be the case, if there's the need for some forensic capacity, the government has indicated that whatever is necessary for the commission to do its work, it stands ready to provide the support. And so my expectation is that if we need, as you indicated, for example, some forensic capacity, if we need a collaboration of allied institutions, whatever the commission needs, the government has indicated its preparedness. But beyond the government, the commission is actually constitutionally grounded. And therefore, in that respect, what it means is that if the commission, for example, issues subpoenas for people to attend to the commission's work, the commission gives out certain orders for allied institutions and agencies of state to provide some facilitation or to collaborate or cooperate with the commission's work. The expectation is that all and sundry will cooperate. So the mapping and the coordination and the entire assessment of the scope of work would obviously begin from Monday, and our hope is that given the caliber of the commission is involved, this shouldn't be a problem. The commission will be able to deliver on its mandates moving forward.
Okay. Has the commission already begun thinking about the timelines it's been giving, 1 month?
Again, as I indicated, when you are set up by an entity or by a body such as the government in this case, and you are given a mandate, you don't immediately complain about the time frame without assessing the scope of your work.
Right.
So the commission will have a proper clarity of the quantum of work involved as it starts its work. Even that, the commission may not know, and nobody has to preempt anything, the commission may not know whether or not it will be able to complete its work in the beginning phases. Things will become clearer as the commission actually gets into full flight, and as witnesses appear before the commission, and as an assessment is made of time. If it becomes necessary for an extension of time, the expectation again is that, given the fact that government has indicated its preparedness to support the commission's work, if the commission justifies the necessity for an extension of time, I do not expect that this will be an issue or difficulty between the government and the commission at all. Okay. Because ultimately, the expectation is that the work done must be sufficient and adequate and must cover the scope of the mandate given, and that in the end, whatever product the commission generates will lead to the sustainable resolution of the problem. Okay. And I've heard people question the usefulness or the utility of the commission, and some have actually been worried about the fact that the commission may create a certain foreclosure of people having to go to court on the back of the things the commission is supposed to investigate. First of all, I think we need to be clear on this. There is nothing in our law that says that when the Commission of Inquiry investigates a matter, that matter is completely precluded from becoming the subject of a criminal proceeding. What the court said, and again, it's useful for us to know that the court that decided this was the High Court. And so while the precedent stands in the meantime, it is not a finality of our laws in the circumstance. But what the court said in that case was that where a person appears before a commission, and in the particular case, the CI specifically said witnesses have immunity in respect to the things they testified on. Now, where a witness has been granted immunity from prosecution in respect to the testimony he gives before a commission, you cannot use the same testimony or the same evidence before a court of law. In the context of what we have today, even though witnesses enjoy the same degree of constitutional immunity, the CI does not specifically grant immunity. But what may actually happen in our case is that where a witness appears and gives testimony, while you can't use that testimony in court, the police can conduct their parallel investigation, and that parallel investigation, if they're able to secure evidence which is outside of the testimony given before the commission, that evidence could be the subject of criminal prosecution. So that fear that commissions of inquiry is actually, when used, as it were, precludes any further investigation, any further criminal proceeding, is not the case. And I think that particular case has been widely overread. That it's been given a much broader scope and breadth than was intended in that case. And again, I would just want to reiterate that this commission's work would not preclude any criminal investigation and prosecution if the police decide to embark on their own. But the reason why a commission is necessary is because the issues that we're dealing with are bigger than just regular incidents of criminality. We're dealing with major issues of structural dysfunction. We will be dealing with issues of institutional coordination, security agencies and their alignment. We may be dealing with issues involving the fact that they may have even been abused of certain constitutional bodies, among others. When you have such issues to be dealt with, dealing with a mere issue of criminality, maybe dealing with the symptoms as opposed to dealing with the foundational issues. So constitutional commissions are designed to deal with problems that go beyond just the regular incidents of criminality like I just mentioned. And that's why the Constitution says that where the President deems it fit, and Parliament also deems it fit, to establish a commission of inquiry in the public interest, in the national interest, they are the authorities to do. I believe that what we witnessed goes beyond just a case or two of criminality. It goes to the very foundations of how security services and agencies and allied institutions, among others, all operate. And so without proffering any judgment at all, there's the need for us to look into it so that a commission can come out with lasting solutions moving forward so we do not have the recurrence of this, because it's been happening too often.
Okay. Thank you very much. We wish you well as you begin work on Monday.
I need that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Dr. Nketia Boakye is secretary to the Emil Short Commission of Inquiry, which many have hailed as the best that you could assemble, with Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu also on that commission. So now let's begin to look at the issue in a deeper perspective and ask the question how we are going to curb the culture of vigilantism, political vigilantism in the country. Now, once again, I start with Dr. Kwesi, and okay, first I didn't start with him. Now, I've been reading Managing Election-Related Violence, and you and Kwesi Danso wrote about that.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I find that you describe Ghana as having been a democracy that has enjoyed relative peace, but in a portion of that book, you said, despite the critical role it plays in the consolidation of democracy, elections in Ghana are invariably plagued by localized violence that threatens the peace, security, and stability of the country. Confined though these acts of violence have accompanied every election, at least under the Fourth Republic. They usually occur before, during, and after elections, and are characterized by threats, intimidation, physical assault, vandalization of electoral materials, as well as the use of hate speeches and incendiary language. Election-related violence is routinely employed by the political class as an operational strategy or counter-strategy to obtain electoral advantage. So this is ingrained in the political system. That's what you're saying.
It's ingrained
it is part of the political system.
It's ingrained in the training of politicians first as individuals, before they join political parties, and before the party captures it and metamorphoses it into something that becomes an operational strategy to win access to political power, driven purely by the allure and access to public funds with very limited interest in the provision of generalized social welfare. Political violence has become a currency, probably the most valuable currency in this country right now. As the cedi continues to fall, irrespective of the command for it to rise, violence has become the only stable currency. It creates new identities, it gives access to power, it gives authority, it creates fear, and it basically transforms ordinary lumpen proletariat who would otherwise have struggled to make a basic living into those who control the outcomes of elections. The five of us around this table eventually will be sidelined. Yawaso has demonstrated that we need to be bold enough, as our national anthem tells us, to confront the canker that has now become an existential threat. So let me go back and raise a couple of questions. Festus has spoken about issues of selection, training, provision of clothing, food. That is for the formal statutory security forces. But since the 1950s, when the Baffle, or one Mr. Baffle, became the symbol and epitome of political violence, and I think some of you have seen the Baffle knife before, it's named after an individual, whose dexterity with the use of that particular knife, stick it into people's stomachs, turn it round so that the razor end will hook onto the intestines and draw it out. Baffle became a big man. So the culture of using particular individuals to, as it were, disrupt rallies, tear down posters, is what has changed over time. Let me come back to a point that Martin made about Dr. Liman and vigilantes. The PNP established violent vigilante groups prior to Liman winning the elections. So around Tishinungwa estates and in the Zongo areas, there were a bunch of extremely nasty guys over there. Non-entities who were failures in life, you know, when just like you, I don't know whether you followed me or I followed you, we were cramming at night and eating soakings without sugar nor milk. These guys, overnight, when Liman won, became important people. So there's a symbolism and a reality in how the usage of political violence transforms lives. But we are looking at a transformation that makes it very dangerous. And I think there are some things that we need to understand. Now, what you've read, I think it was from 2016. The one that will come out by June next year is even much more disturbing. What we've done this time around is to look at the social composition of these well-muscled men that Festus was talking about. Where do they come from? What is their background? What do they believe in? We want to use their language, okay? So one of my favorite writers is Alhaji Bamba of the Delta Forces. You know, so I've gathered all his statements and the statements of others, and we will triangulate it. What do they mean when they use particular words and particular phrases? What is the rhetoric, and who are those that they are speaking to? So if you listen to what Abrampa told us, the mere presence of that guy tapping him turned this strong, handsome man into quivering jelly. All of us will be turned into jelly. But we need to understand the contradictions in their language. Whether those who have recruited them understand the complexities of the genie that they are releasing from the bottle. But even more dangerously relates to their silence.
Okay, sorry. I just had your mic terminated for a brief exercise. I hear there's a bit of a difficulty in the last part that you were making a presentation. We'll return to it, and I get to you know, kind of Festus, and at page 25 of this document, Managing Election Violence, I read here, they said that in Ghana, the violent manner in which the various political and economic undercurrents are giving expression, particularly by the political class and their supporters during election periods, for example, through direct clashes between opposing local party supporters, burning and looting of property, seizure of ballot boxes by macho men and unemployed youth, constitute a formidable threat to the growth and consolidation of the country's fledgling democracy. So I ask myself the question, all the things that have been pointed out here constitute clear offenses in our election processes. And I'll refer to the specific law shortly. And yet, it is allowed and it goes on. How is that? How is that? And how am I supposed to process that?
Is that the end of the question?
Yes.
Anyway, on the surface of it, we might think that these are very fleeting issues, but these are very fundamental issues. And I think earlier on, Kwesi and probably the others referred to this phenomenon being an existential threat to our democracy. And that is rightly so. There is a school of thought that elections represent a path of peaceful change within democracies. That take elections away, you then left with one thing. Yeah. It's either coups or some extrajudicial, seizures of political power. So that is the context in which I think we all need to be very, very concerned about this phenomenon. Why is it still prevailing? We need to only hazard some suggestions. My own suggestion or my view would be that this has become political power play. So the young men and women who resort to these approaches know that they have support within the political class or within the political establishment. A few years ago, there was debate about whether these so-called vigilantes or thugs or whatever actually belong to parties. But in recent times, the political actors have come to say that these are our boys.
Right.
So there is no debate about who established them. The key question is, why do political parties, as actors within the political dispensation, resort to the use of violence in order to attain their political objectives? And you can only suggest that there are high economic stakes. So there is a certain element of the political economy of electoral violence. Now, you know that when you attain political power, you control the resources of the state. And therefore, attaining political power becomes an objective that you wish to attain by hook or crook. And it comes with very, very many dangers. It is also possible, without going too much into any academic debate, that the state is being captured by certain political actors or other actors acting within the political spaces, for the same economic benefit. That if I'm able to support this political actor as opposed to that, and that political actor achieves power, I have so much, to gain. Because some have suggested, I think a bit glibly, that because of unemployment. But I think this phenomenon begs the issue that even if we become a prosperous society, it might still continue because not all of us, if you like, are ever going to be properly, employed. So what I see is a certain element of culture. And in this book, The Indigenous African Warfare, I have quoted from a lecturer at Sandhurst, a historian actually, military historian, I cannot remember his name. And he suggested that sometimes war is a culture of a people. So as a society, we have gradually made political violence or electoral violence a part of our culture. And the baffle that you mentioned takes us back to the era as long ago as immediate post-independence, probably pre. The question about the action troopers, the question about the Tokyo Joes, the question about the Shifimo pay, you know, all of which were acting within the political space in order to get either the NLM or the UP or CPP to attain power. And then, of course, once you achieve that political kingdom, according to Kwame Nkrumah's philosophy, the rest is for you. It's only Ali Mazrui who has disputed that we should first seek the economic kingdom, and then the rest will be ours. So these are some of the dangers that I see, that we are allowing our institutions to be exploited and manipulated by political actors. And it's as if we don't see any present dangers. And that is the baffling part. There are very, very serious security challenges embedded in this culture that is gaining roots. So we need to do whatever we can to ensure that in the immediate aftermath, especially 2020, our political or electoral processes are devoid of violence. And it can only be possible if we now repose, revive, reactivate, maintain the confidence that we need to place within the police and other law enforcement institutions. And then we need, as is being suggested, to make it an offense, legally a serious offense, if people deviate from using peaceful means to attain political power. The challenge we have in this is that it so happens that the two major political actors are themselves the perpetrators of this culture. So how do you deal with them? If there had been some of the minor political actors, I don't know too much about the parties, but let's assume the PPP, that's for Dr. Ndum.
That's right.
He would have been dealt with. Or we could have dealt with the PPP. But once it is either the NPP or the NDC, who for good or bad reasons have been alternating in exercising political power every 8 years, it's become a game.
Right.
And probably that is one reason why the NDC doesn't trust the current authority, because it knows that in its own dispensation, it probably resorted to similar approaches just to whitewash, a process or an incident and get away with it.
Interesting. Now, back to you to be able to develop your points and finish it up. You actually say that this development in the Ghanaian body politic calls into question the viability of our democracy. But you were asking questions about practically at the individual level, their leaders, what they were doing. Is it new that now some of these group leaders are able to even issue statements that you are beginning to analyze? They issue statements.
Well, they are issuing statements. The groups are beginning to be franchised. They are beginning to threaten political leaders. They are beginning to become an informal opposition. Whilst in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, that by itself was not a problem. This time round, there's a radicalized rhetoric and ideology and a deliberate manipulative process, first to infiltrate, to hijack, and to radicalize. So if you look at the rhetoric that is coming from all these groups, you would notice that earlier on, political violence was something that was done by the lumping proletariat. They were recruited by the fine Oxbridge-trained people, and they dissociated themselves publicly from them. Now it is the political class itself, the individuals. So our Deputy Defense Minister Mr. Oduro says, MPP will keep its vigilante groups for their internal security. And the question is that why do you need that internal security for? But even further are the iconic, symbolic names that these groups are being given. So the Shifime, whatever it was, it's not sexy. It is not catchy. But now we have the Hawks, the Dragons. He told me the other time, Eastern Members, Pentagon, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Burma Camp, Tahoza 166. What do these names symbolize? My argument is that these are not just names picked in an ad hoc manner. These are first animalistic names with particular values and characteristics of speed, power, venom, strength, and underline all that, an interest in capturing and controlling space. So, what we are beginning to see, and it's not different from what has happened in Burundi. Somebody had just sent me something from Burundi. You know, Burundi, South Sudan, Uganda, Liberia, Nigeria. This is a phenomenon that we know from history that the political class will not eventually be able to control. What Ayawasu showed us is that those who masqueraded as Kakamotobis with earrings, with gold chains, with bandanas, and masks as if they were starring in Star Wars, and calling them security. I don't know how Festus feels. Okay? This is an informal opposition that is now beginning to threaten the formal opposition groups who recruited them. So we saw Honorable Osei, the Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation.
Okay, yes.
Doing hoops and loops through a window to save his life.
Yeah.
This is the beginning. And Martin, I will repeat it. Come another by-election, post the report of this commission, the violence we will see will be 3 times worse than Ayawaso. I will put my best malt whiskey on the table and my PhD certificate on the table.
That would be extreme.
No, what is the extreme about it? Because this is about money. It's about power.
I think they've been cautioned enough.
By who?
The larger society, you see, the abhorrence and everything that we've
It doesn't matter. We all don't matter. Because the 3 of us were in a process that should generate trust, openness, by critical stakeholders to say we abhor this, we will stop it. And then this letter from the North comes, written a couple of days before those who were telling us to build trust.
That's history repeating itself. Yesterday I saw that Liman created such a body, the inter-party consultative meeting. When he faced such security threats, he invited the parties and all that. But still, it didn't stop.
Precisely. And it has escalated since Liman's time. Okay? What we are experiencing.
And these groups, like you have seen, now being officially created from government offices in the Upper West region, will add to the numbers that you have been worried about. You say the numbers keep increasing. At the last count, we had how many of these groupings?
17. Now we have about 24, 26. Okay. Now, those that the government offices are recruiting are different from those in existence. Now, we know that the Invincibles have split. Okay, and it's beginning to splinter much further because people think their leaders have used them for their pecuniary benefits and they didn't get. Because in the hierarchy of the violence, they were not recognized as individuals. So now people want to be recognized as individuals. Abampa will talk about the geographic location and specificity of some of the actions. Okay, so let me also say this. That letter that we have seen is not an isolated letter.
Okay.
My reading, and I'm not as cautious in my language as Festus, my reading is that that individual, previously from the Garrison Education Branch, was issued oral instructions. He then transcribed it onto paper. And I suspect that most people in similar positions across this country were issued similar oral instructions. Now, what will happen is that who reports to who, as Festus has said. Now, an RCC-driven, organized set of political thugs, recognized from party central office, will now begin to compete with all the other previously formed parties. So within the groups, they'll begin to clash. We've seen it in Sierra Leone, Liberia, like Cote d'Ivoire.
But they explain that these are just election monitors.
That is not their responsibility.
We need you to have a certain capacity and quality, including how you look and how well you are built, and how you are security, conscious.
Yes.
But they are not to be used as thugs.
A captain who retired or didn't progress and left the service maybe 10, 15 years ago does not understand the changing security dynamics. And so that statement from him does not wash. In my class, that is an E-. It's fail. Look, they can give all the explanations, but the two of us know from the grassroots, having spoken to these guys and assured them that their identities will not be exposed, have told us their willingness to hide their skills. And it's not only about politics now. Because of the franchising and the economic modeling underpinning the violence, do you find them fighting during chieftaincy situations? Land? They are for hire. These are mercenaries, basically, for hire. Now, people tend to forget Ghana's history in fueling and benefiting from violence in West Africa for a long time. Liberia's war was planned in Accra. Mr. Fodesanko stayed here, and the two of them passed through town before they went to Tajura in Libya for training, came back and assassinated Mr. Thomas Sankara. So the infrastructure for violence and our capacity to rhetorize it, mobilize and encourage people to do it is historically proven. Okay? So what the genie that we are playing with is going to come back to bite us. Already the guns are available. I've just traveled along the Burkina Faso border. We don't have any borders there. The guns are coming in and out. I've traveled from Hamle to Elubo. The report is ready. If you guys can hook it up, I'll show you where there are no borders and boundaries. Okay, the trade in guns is massive. Okay, so all we need to do by telling us that we'll provide some little training, why do we establish the election security task forces? That is a policing function. Now, I was discussing with Abrampa earlier on. What happens after the training and your party loses power? How do you pull back the guns? Where and what do you think they will do with the trained skill sets that you have given them? If we want to learn a lesson, what happened to the minister in Pankrono? But the painful thing is that he came back to deny, although there were pictures. Until there is a death or serious bodily injury, we can continue to fool ourselves. But this, I will repeat, and if our intelligence and security services are bold enough to speak the truth, political thuggery, armed political thuggery, is now the single most serious existential threat to this country.
Now, Mr. Rampa, in the book I refer to managing election-related violence, Dr. Kwesi and his friends, Kweku Danso, and also Ernest Latte, they had this subtopic. They called it democracy on knife edge. Is that where we are getting to?
We've traveled past that stage.
Ghana's democracy is on knife edge?
It sounds like we've traveled past that stage. But let me come back to Martin. That's anytime Kwesi mentions democracy is under threat. He seems to have a shock face. It's a reality, Martin. And let me also say that we are now facing a danger that may transcend border. Because now, as Kwesi painted, our borders are very porous. And there's one thing that we found in the research.
Useless.
Yeah. There's one findings that we had in the project I did with Kwesi, and it came out that when these, I refuse to call them vigilante group. I'll come why when it comes to the recommendations, why I refuse to call them that. But then it makes their actions misdemeanor and attracts a fine that does not besiege. Because if somebody has killed somebody, he's a murderer, a target, a criminal. We have to approach them as such. So in future, my recommendation is that we change the narrative, we change the tagging and make what they do actually what they do. So when you go to the law called the pampered, I'll come that. So
them in the past.
What came out in one of the findings is that some now they have not. So I also said we should change the naming political vigilantism. Yeah, because now we have a group of people who have formed these targeted groups as a profession and who are ready to rent their services to whoever is ready to pay the bid. And what happens is that these vigilante associations talk to themselves. So when they are going to what they call operation, when they are going for the so-called operation, and they assess their strength and realizes that the opposition they are going to face is higher than what the strength they have, they then import. They bring in other people from other groups to come and help them. So vigilantism now
and they could go beyond the country.
That's the question I posed to a meeting that we had, that we should start looking into that. We should stop looking into opposition party basing people across the border to come and vote, but look into our vigilante groups also basing people to come and support their activities. In fact, in the rounds, we tried probing that. They were laughing, didn't want to come up with some of the facts, but it's hinted that in Talensi, there was semblance of that. And I had my national service at Shia in the Volta region, which is a border town. And I as soon as I was at the meeting trying to have, and in the meeting we were with it was a Chatham House rule with the vigilante groups themselves, who were pouring their hearts, telling us the facts. So it came to mind that at Shia, I could walk across the border, and in fact, Ghana, those at Ghana side and the Togo side, were playing friendly football matches. We were going to, in fact, the school I was teaching, I had more than 45% of people coming across the border. Isn't it that now Togo has vigilante groups because of the political impasse over there Ghana has? Can't it be possible? I was just posing a question that when we are under stress, our strength does not match those who are going to face. Can't we import people to come and help us? Now we understand Burkina Faso has been covered by about 65% of terrorist activity. So now Burkina Faso security forces hold only 35. Gradually they are moving in. If you have this cross-border assistance, is it not a thread easy for people to enter here? So Martin, we've gotten to a point that it's not only the fear of our guys here going to usurp the powers of the country, but we've gotten to a point that they are laying the foundation for easy access and insurgency into the country. That's what we have to be looking at. So when you ask me whether it is dangerous, I'd say it's dangerous, and we've gotten past the place that we think our insurgency could be surpassed. And I dare say, as Kofi Boakye has said, my good friend Agojo has also said, it may get to a point, not only by elections, yes, by elections are dangerous. In general elections, if you don't take care, each of the 275 MPs is going to have his own vigilante group. If we don't dispel the issue, that's why I say the most critical aspect of this Commission of Inquiry's job is the post-reports. What do we do with the reports? This is the last opportunity we may have ahead of these two elections. How well we make use of the recommendations is going to cement this issue. If you don't hold the recommendations well, and people still entertain the fear, especially the mutual mistrust among the two leading political parties, that ginger and encourage formation of parties, we are going to have it. Hitherto, it was clandestine. The political figures were afraid to publicly declare their support and their assistance for these groups. Now it's open. They are even emboldened. They are proud to announce that, yes, I form it, I have it. And in the words of one of them, they intend to have a vigilante group in almost every constituency. That's the extent we are going, Martin.
So now we know that those well-established, they are in every region. And that they have, as it were, he says, franchising of them. They have their, as it were, branches. And earlier in the year, last year, or sometime last year, the NDC, outdoored this group. And when they were questioned, the chairman said, who is chairman now, Osampofu said, they were just to help with election monitoring processes. How different is that from what we have now heard, which we have seen a letter written, and the author of the letter, security liaison officer, confirming the content, that is what they are doing. They are only getting them to monitor elections. Is that to say that even the governing party cannot trust the security setup to protect the ballot?
None of the political parties in the country has ever 100% trusted security in the country. That is the problem why anytime a party is in opposition, it has zero trust in the government. And as you said, even those in government try to establish a certain form of security protection for their own members, and we try and gradually seeing the nation's security being used as a support to the private established security forces than the private security force aiding the services of the national security. That's the level. That's why I like Colonel's analysis of the president's old guard regiments, and that we should take notes from what happened then and what can happen now.
But so, Dr. Koscieni asked the question, now you say you are giving them training. When you are done, what do they use the training for when they cannot do what you want them to do anymore?
Let me use Emeka's example, his practical example from Nigeria to answer this question. Emeka is the head of WANEP, Ghana. And before his appointment to Ghana, he was the head of WANEP Nigeria. And in one of the states, I've forgotten the state he mentioned, there was increasing criminal activities in the state. So the state governor assembled experts in security and sold the idea to them that because of the increasing phenomenon of criminal activities, he wanted to use, capacitate the community work dogs to tackle that phenomenon. And in his capacitating, he was going to give them resources, including weapons. And because, the history, the story and the theory of using community people, because they know the culture, they understand the terrain, they know the borders, they understand the language.
But they're the same people who turn around.
So they are easy to deal with the situation like a foreigner coming into the States. Then one of his sponsors from UK or US had visited Nigeria. Because he was a foreigner, he didn't want to speak. So he scribbled something on note and gave it to Emeka. His view was, he should ask the governor what they were going to do with the new skills after the exercise. So Emeka posed the question, and the governor did not budge. After 3 months, according to Emeka, crime rates went down. Everything was successful.
Okay.
Right after about a month, the case of kidnapping started coming up. So the question is, who are behind this kidnapping? So the people who we capacitated, the new set of skills they've gained, they are applying it to different fields to enrich themselves. So they came for the creme de la creme in society, their children, their wives, their assigns. So the money that you spent on them, and they think you have enough, they are not taking back from you. It's a scenario that we should take sample from in Ghana here.
Is that what is happening in these groupings in Ghana?
I think,
are we not over-exaggerating?
No,
never.
Never.
I think we are over-exaggerating.
Never. No. If you don't paint a clear picture as what's happening in the ground, we over-pamper this issue. And if you then take, my colleague Daniel Amato did analysis from Afrobarometer and wrote on vigilantism. And he said, a fox we are growing. If you don't kill it now, it will grow to come and devour us. That was his analysis of the book. It's something that we are growing. First, as you saw, hardly will you find a vigilante group clothed in national attire, national paraphernalia to act. First, it was very difficult for them to, even when they were operating, snatching of ballot boxes, they will do it and run away. Now they will do it and go and stand on radio and tell you, I've done it, come and arrest me. We have a couple of them. Kwame Sefeka interviewed somebody who boldly said that I've seized National Health Insurance Office at, is it? Come and come out. There are so many, Baba in the Stephen North said, if you kill them, who can they arrest me? That is the situation that we're going. Why weren't they arrested?
Those who went to the port and after the elections and the things they did, and you had a party chairman justifying and saying that they were protecting they were exercising their duty as given them by the Constitution to protect and preserve public property. I mean, that's
so that's
the height of it.
You know,
right?
you bring it. That's the most reason why I think we should change the narrative, the target, because when you look into vigilante, by definition itself, is not wrong. That I can even. The five of us here can even arrest somebody who we've seen bringing down electricity pole that belongs to the whole society. Right. But the theory is, or the law is, as soon as we did that, we have to send the fellow to the law enforcement agencies. Right. Is that what we're seeing here?
No.
So is that vigilantism? So if you even don't change the narrative there and paint a clear picture responding to the activities of these vigilante groups, will be missing the
I have a two-finger point?
Yes, please do.
Very quickly.
I've always called them hooligans rather than vigilante, because vigilante is supposed to be like a community self-defense kind of group. But normally their presence is because maybe police is not sufficient, so they do a bit of help. But they are, like they say, a double-edged sword. They will be helpful one point, but the next day they will turn against you.
Exactly. There is no exaggeration here. In 2011, the Security Council asked me to do a report on what was happening in the Sahel. So, under some protection, I went to Mauritania, Senegal, Niger,
You mean as
Mali,
in the UN?
The United Nations, Burkina Faso. I presented a 56-page report. The African members on the council laughed at me. In Mali, the governor of the Kedar region and I...
How would the African members laugh at you? You were the first,
because we were,
the first expert to do these things on the for the AU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because African political class do not respect African scholarship. That's why whenever I do this, the consultancy goes elsewhere, that we can go and beg them for it.
You were pointing to Mali?
Yeah. When the report was presented, the African representative laughed. No, it's not true. This is an exaggeration, an academic. In northern Mali, I counted 110 Lexus 4x4s. And I asked the governor, what is that? He told me that is Al-Qaeda. Then I said, so why don't you deal with it? He said, we can't, because that is the state. People pay taxes to them, and they've supplanted the state. Okay? It's a long story. But I've just traveled around Ghana because two of our major donors, based on their satellite imagery, were concerned about arms trafficking and transnational criminal networks. So contracted me to do some research for them. And this was something I'm very sad about our own security service, but it's because of the fear. Around the Sampa area, there's only a couple of checkpoints. But in villages like this is free intelligence. Buko, Cabre, Krobite, Kusuya number 2 and number 1, Nketia, Mpuaso. We are seeing criminal gangs and criminal networks, of whom some of them are political thugs, doing business in perfumes, rice, blah, blah, across the La Côte d'Ivoire boundaries. So there's no exaggeration.
Okay.
You see, I don't believe, because I know this work creates hatred, you've got to be very careful and methodical in putting the evidence on the table.
Okay.
I've said this thing several times, and I've offered the material for people to come into my office and pick it. Nobody has shown an interest.
Interesting.
No.
Now, Martin.
It brings disrespect.
Now, Martin. So, very clearly, we are seeing things that some have suggested we need to make laws to deal with them. Now, in our Electoral Offences Act, you would read offences of interference with electioneering activities of other persons. This is section 36. I read, seeking to excite or promote disharmony, hatred or enmity against another person or group of persons by words, written or verbal, songs, etc. Check this one. Organizing persons or group of persons with the intention of training them in the use of force, violence, be it physical or verbal, against other persons. Obstructs or attempts to obstruct the free exercise of franchise by other persons, and compels or induces a candidate or voter from voting or withdrawing their vote, etc., etc. And the sanctions for these include a fine not exceeding 500 penalty units. That will give us how much? Almost 3,000. Okay.
500 times 12. Yes.
Okay. 6,000. Then imprisonment.
One penalty is
12 Ghana cedis. Yeah. Cedis. Then imprisonment not exceeding 2 years, or both fine and imprisonment, and 5 years disqualification. Question is, why is it that the laws are so clear about some of these things, and yet we don't have any examples of anybody being punished? Let's go to Chireponi, the things that happened. Let's go to all the places we have mentioned. If you can remember anybody that has been put on trial and punished for electoral offenses, is this why this is encouraged?
Partly, yes. It's partly to blame. And there's this other section you haven't read. You know, it says in the Act, we're talking about the representation of the people. That's PNDC Law 284. Right. Yeah, that's a law.
Of course, but you know we don't call it PNDC Law again. We call it Act.
Act, yes. Yes, the Act. So you find that there's a federal provision that don't prosecute until you have the consent of the Attorney General. But please, there's a federal clarification that you can arrest, you can charge, but for the case to progress to this end, you need the consent of the Attorney General. Yes, so as you've rightly stated, in these by-elections...
Let me read it out. Section 42.
Yes.
Consent to prosecution. A person shall not be prosecuted for an offense under this Act without the consent in writing of the Attorney General, except that this section shall not prevent a person being charged with that offense.
Yes. So you can arrest and you can start by charging.
Or being arrested or remanded.
So, yes. So you arrest, you take statements, then you charge him, but for the case to progress in court, you need a consent.
In writing.
In writing, thank you, of the Attorney General. So you've rightly stated it. It's partly to blame. But you see, in all this analysis, there's also the case that I think there are other countervailing forces. You see, when these things happen, I think the reason we usually don't have the prosecution is that the peace entrepreneurs, okay, yes, they also come up. It would appear it's better we try to chastise them, naming and shaming, and so we leave the prosecution. You see, so I'm saying that the reason we haven't prosecuted is mixed. And remember, Mr. Boakye mentioned it. There is that culture. There's a cultural element. You see that people come and prevail upon the authorities that, oh, we'll do it right next time.
Is it not rather the case that those who feel more emboldened and better emboldened to do these things would normally belong to the governing party because they know they can get away, and that when they actually commit the offenses, they can be assured that they will not be prosecuted?
Yes, that's largely also to blame. But no, you see, citizens get what happens to them. It's because as a collective, as a people, we allow it that, okay, no prosecution. What prevents us, if, let's say, Chireponi or Talensi, what prevents us as a people from marching on the government, marching to say that we insist on a prosecution? I see it as a reflection of the collective, the society. It's because after so much naming and shaming and the political discussion. You see, when you initiate a dialogue and everything, I think that by and large, as a society, we kind of accept that, oh, this thing will pass. And as I've mentioned, this is not the first time. It dates from even pre-Kwame Nkrumah. I remember even the colonial era, citizens mopping and wounding chiefs. You have Ofinsu and Kumewu. The British punished these persons, yet it continued. Then I mentioned even Kofi Banda, when Ejusu political rally, he was killed. Then there's Kankam, the killing in Kumasi, okay, CPP activists killing another person. You will see that if you read our history, you will find that these things have always happened. And the violence is not peculiar to Ghana. It's a global issue. You know, even in America, they give us all the funds and all the foreign funding, the donations. Yeah, they also have an issue. You know, the KKK. Yeah. Okay? Yes. And even you see what happened in Charlottesville in 2017 when Trump was condemned for supporting one side. So what I'm saying is that violence is always been with us. And we need in our analysis, yes, to reckon that there are some countervailing forces that help to keep our society together. So when you're analyzing that, yes, it looks like it will explode, you don't analyze the countervailing forces. Look at Peace Council. You see what you remember 2012? There was so much tension, or even 2008. There was so much tension. The Peace Council came in 2012. You remember the Nketia Declaration? You know, it helped. So all I'm saying is that, yes, these things you are pointing out, yes, we need to pay attention. Of course, I remember some in the literature, once again, today it's all about Liman. You know, he was warned when he formed these vigilante groups to help, you know, sustain the control prices. Because, you know, prior to that, there was Kalabule where, the system had just gotten down, traders were making too much profit and all that. So this vigilante, the AFRC cadres, he turned them to vigilante groups to help maintain the system so that the Kalabule system wouldn't work. Then later they said they were helping to do community policing. What I'm saying about all this is that we've always had these. So let's analyze critically the forces that help to maintain the peace. When you do, then you see that there is a balance of forces. Yes,
you have mentioned that other part of the law. What would you say? What's the wisdom in that law to where the police prosecutors are empowered to conduct arrests and so on and go ahead and prosecute anyway, you know, and then for election offenses, you say they can't prosecute unless they have the written, you know, consent of the Attorney General. What's the wisdom in that kind of law?
There is some wisdom. I can tell you something. You've heard of this saying in philosophy and development: the more things change, the more they remain the same. The more things change, the more they remain the same. So there's a problem. You are going to solve it. If you are not careful, the solution you want to give will end up creating another problem altogether. So let's say that you want to prosecute an NDC person, for example, or let me shy away from mentioning. Let me say Party X, so that tomorrow, Party X. Then you find that, look, the way these people are charging will end up having more violence than what we sought to do. I mean, it's common sense that let's retreat.
Is that what we want to promote?
No, we are not promoting. We are helping.
That because we are afraid that a political party,
and the pacifism is part of our culture.
A political party members will organize themselves against the government, and they will overpower the government or what? No, therefore, don't prosecute one of them who has committed a clear offense.
Look, like putting it bluntly, yes, sometimes that's it. But as I always mention, that's just one aspect of it. There are countervailing forces, the Peace Council and all this. You know, the work that they do, it helps. The Catholic Bishops' Conference and all that. You see, you know what they've done? Even the Dabon Christ, you know the role they played and all that. So what I'm saying is that, look, violence has always been here. And we've always had our countervailing forces helping to stem it. So you would never be able to eliminate it 100%. But I don't think this country is going to explode. No, our history doesn't inform us. So let's come again. So something in 1960, the UP man, Jemfi, when he killed the CPP man, and then we prosecuted him, jailed him, okay, for manslaughter. Did they stem it totally? I mean, it stemmed, of course. But did it eradicate violence totally? No, we are human beings. So let's come from a criminological perspective. Crime will always be here. Crime will always be here. But of course, that doesn't mean we are sleeping. What I'm saying is that we have a lot of forces, the good, that are helping to neutralize this to a certain extent. So anytime you analyze the violence, also analyze the countervailing forces we have in our society, the pastors and the bishops and all that they are doing, the exhortations. I remember, I think, CDD,
Mr. Brampa.
Mr. Brampa mentioned that we should have a video of this electoral violence. So we want to bring about behavioral change. So you just don't say that an eye for an eye. Because an eye for an eye hasn't solved it. Even from the Mosaic law, they did stop violence in this world. So it means that we have to think outside the box. So we are doing an eclectic approach. So let's not insist that every violence means that we must
prosecute and you do the education.
Yeah, so, yes, but justice too sometimes requires, you remember the last time you even helped me out on it, requires restitution. You see, help. So I'm expecting that in this commission of inquiry, there will be an aspect of restorative justice, compensation. I'm expecting that as part of the...
People are said to be losing their legs and
exactly. So I'm expecting that the commission will make recommendations that those people be compensated. And I think when you compensate, did you hear that they say the one who was shot in the leg, his leg is going to be amputated? I think that the compensation, and you know, in torts law, they should put him in a position as if he never sustained that injury. So if his leg is amputated, I expect prosthesis and proper care for him, assistance and all that.
People were killed without reason. You know how much they are receiving?
250,000.
Is that worth it?
It's insufficient.
Okay.
But it's also the
if you were prosecuting a case for somebody like that, to receive civil damages for them, you receive 100 times that.
Yes.
But the compensation, see what it is, peanuts.
Yes, peanuts. So we are hoping that the commission will do a better job.
Somebody who has lost his leg, if you were to do a case in that regard, in tort and seek compensation for them, you would get them enough, probably get them a tailor-made vehicle that they will use. They will get a home, a number of things. But compensation, they may give them 50,000. We say it's okay, and you say that's what we should promote.
No, I'm just saying that as a first step, the commission should. And remember, you remember earlier I made a point, and then Dr. Abuchi also reinforced it. The fact that we started with the commission doesn't mean that's the end of the road. No, when we go, depending on how it goes, we may do the criminal prosecutions. So the point I'm emphasizing is that, please, in all this analysis, we should also critically analyze the forces that have helped us to keep together. When you do, then you see that, okay, it's a phenomenon of violence always been in society. But that does not mean that I'm supporting that they continue. No, vigilantism, we are going to stem it. And stem it very well.
Okay. We'll take a break here, but before we do that, let's hear Nketia Boakye, whether he confirms the things that you know, the experts here are saying, and whether or not Martin will change his view about what they are saying may happen if we don't tackle this issue properly. Let's hear Nketia Boakye, the police boss, and hear and take a break.
This vigilantism is something which is clear and present danger to our democracy. And it is escalating. It's not coming down. Because something has not happened. But I can assure you, if we don't sit up, police, political parties, both NDC and MPP, civil society, those who know better, if we all don't sit up, 2020 and beyond will be something explosive, and it can be something that will not be able to contain.